The Israeli Defense Force earlier dropping leaflets echoed through text and voice alerts urging some 100,000 people already internally displaced by the war to evacuate to a humanitarian zone outside of the city, with Israel warning it would initiate a limited scope operation. This latest escalation coming as Israel and Hamas again failed to agree a much anticipated hostage for ceasefire deal. Israel's assault on Rafah coming after a Hamas-claimed rocket attack killed at least 3 IDF soldiers at the Kerem Shalom border crossing between southern Israel and Gaza, injuring several more, as fear mounts of the further humanitarian peril that awaits the people of Rafah.
There was really a lot of hope over the last days that there would be a ceasefire. So we're genuinely devastated to wake up today and have the reality that is the leaflet drop and, reports of evacuations beginning. There's nowhere to go. Nobody has a clear path where to go. There is no advice on where to go. There is no safety to be led to. So in each circumstance, in each family now, it's a lot of panic and a lot of chaos, because even though we're hearing the evacuation orders are confined to a small area in Rafah, mid the east of Rafah, you can imagine as people start to move, the panic is going to spread. Already outside the window here, we're in more center of Rafah. People are beginning to take down the shelters and leave.
The UN humanitarian chief Martin Griffiths in a statement last week warned that an assault on Rafah would spell more trauma and death, views echoed by the UN Secretary General.
For the sake of the people of Gaza, for the sake of the hostages and their families in Israel, and for the sake of the region and the wider world, I strongly encourage the government of Israel and the Hamas leadership to reach now an agreement. Without that, I fear the war, with all its consequences both in Gaza and across the region, will worsen exponentially. Recent weeks have seen airstrikes on the Rafah area. A military assault on Rafah would be an unbearable escalation, killing thousands more civilians and forcing hundreds of thousands to flee. It would have a devastating impact on Palestinians in Gaza, with serious repercussions on the occupied West Bank and across the wider region.
With dire implications not just for the residents of Rafah, but for the broader humanitarian response in Gaza as a whole.
Most importantly, the hundreds of thousands of people who are there would be at imminent risk of death if there is an assault. So we are looking at, if this happens, both what the emergency relief coordinator has warned about could be a slaughter of civilians, but also at the same time an incredible blow to the humanitarian operation in the entire strip, because it is run primarily out of Rafah.
Local US reports suggest Israel had briefed the United States on its plans to evacuate Palestinian civilians from Rafah with the aim of rooting out Hamas, but that the plan didn't change the US position that moving forward would place too many civilians at risk, a view articulated by the US chief diplomat during a visit to Israel last week.
On Rafah itself, look, our position is clear. It hasn't changed. It won't change. We will not support a major military operation in Rafah absent an effective plan to make sure that civilians are not harmed. And no, we've not seen such a plan.
And as they evacuate, some for the 4th time since the war began, fear and panic at what lies ahead. US President Joe Biden spoke Monday with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and will lunch with Jordan's King Abdullah II in an effort to keep the ceasefire talks alive. Hamas has insisted that any ceasefire for hostage deal must end the war, but Israel has rejected this until it believes it has completely dismantled Hamas's ability to mount an attack in future. The rocket strikes by Hamas on an IDF staging area that killed and injured soldiers on Sunday has further complicated efforts to deliver a sustainable truce between the two sides. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.